when we have tools available to us that support self-understanding, self-awareness, that give us a framework and increase our capacity to be able to test and to experiment and to log our experiences and to start to track patterns in our responses, in our decision-making process, understanding what templates we're operating from, what is actually running the show, what is actually driving our behavior. That is so powerful to have those tools, and then also to have a quality of space that is free from external analysis or competition, that there are no metrics being set by other people in relation to our performance, that there is time spent building trust in one's own ability to actually create a testing ground and to build in feedback loops, to monitor what's going on, to develop a vocabulary that feels like it is relevant to us, to our own cultural reference point. And for this to be, in a way, a kind of sacred space that we can then draw resource from, we can reference. It is, and it becomes our blueprint, our guidebook, so that when we are invited to engage and to share with others, or to reveal more about ourselves, we can come into this space and we can draw from the well of the work that we have been doing and say, I know this about myself. I know that I'm this kind of person. I know that when I'm faced with a challenge, this is typically how I respond. I know that when the following ingredients are present in an environment, this is how I typically react to those. This is my default position. These are my protective mechanisms. And to be empowered with that information from a kind of strategic point of view, it feels really good to have that level of self-awareness about one's internal landscape. And then it makes me think about how, when we are actually working with others, and when we're sharing techniques or systems or processes related to skill development, learning something that's of interest, the foundational infrastructure, in fact, that can really elevate that and really, really support that is these accompanying tools, which are for the individual to explore in their own time, in a way that is free of judgment and scrutiny and external analysis, so that that space of building trust with oneself, this is the anchor point that allows us to stay connected to our own sense of identity and our own personal values, so that when we do ask for help, when we are open to learning something from someone else or being shown a particular approach to problem solving or working towards achieving something, that we are also able to engage with that in a way that is open to feedback, open to receiving input from others, energy from others, opinions from others. Without this connection to our own anchor point, we actually become vulnerable in our engagement with how we may attach and how we may make meaning around the feedback that we receive. If we have not got this source of stability that is actually accessible to us personally and private to us, and it can be shared or revealed to others that we feel safe to do that with, we are placing power outside of ourselves, and we are making it more challenging for ourselves to be adaptive and be resilient to interfacing with other people's perspectives on what they think that we should be doing, achieving, fulfilling. And in the realm of vocal development, which is inherently identity work, even if we are approaching it from a kind of methodical pedagogy approach within a particular style or tradition, we are inviting people to engage with activities that are physical, they are emotional, they are social, they are spiritual, they are psychological. The filter is the individual. We're asking people to engage with work that is actively shaping and training the body, but we are also shaping and training identity in the process, because we are responding and relating always to these shifts and changes through different lenses. We could be exploring character work, we could be exploring narrative, story, we could be exploring performance, improvisation. We are exploring energy, we are exploring relationship, we are exploring value system work also, because when we are engaging in any practice that is straddling over into territory that is performative or involves audience, we are creating a space within ourselves to accommodate response and reaction and feedback to how we are presenting, what we are communicating, the aesthetic of what is being transmitted through our vocalization, and whether or not that meets the preference or opinion of those who are engaging with the work that we're sharing. So that's why I say that voice work of any kind, with whatever stratification of focus or whatever training approach we are using, is inherently identity work. And coming back to the tools that we are offering, and how we are introducing modes and methods of training and vocal development, the accompanying resourcing of tools of reflection and tools of personal cultivation that I believe are so important, they help to strengthen the individual and their resolve and their ability to read their own signals, their internal communications, and the subtle expressions that are related to personal boundary and what feels good and what doesn't feel good, and what is a yes and what is a no. And assuming that people have these skills to hand and that they have tools and resources to hand to explore what is essentially a very personal, often private, internal journey of figuring out what do I actually want, what do I actually need, what do I feel like I am being called towards, what do I feel is meeting my particular outlook, my temperament, my creative desires. If we make an assumption that people have time, resource, and tools to be engaging in that work, we may very well miss opportunity to really be connecting on a level that is truly asking permission when we say, I have a new approach that I want to share with you, or here's a song that you might like to sing, or have you considered going about your practice in this way? If we haven't built a quality of trust and a foundation of real safety with those that we are inviting into this kind of work, then we are making an assumption about that person's capacity to actually be able to truly say when something is not right for them, to be able to actually say, I don't feel comfortable with this, or you've misunderstood the creative direction I'm trying to travel in, and I don't feel like what you have offered me right now is really in line with my outlook, or it doesn't resonate with my personal values. So there's something there about how we can, in a facilitation role, actually hold a space alongside the teaching agenda or the curriculum that we would like to share. And actually, the space that is being held is in acknowledgement to the unspoken communication of the student who is actually trying to build and strengthen their own relationship with the part of themselves that maybe has never felt safe enough to say in a from an inside out point of view, to actually verbalize or articulate what the innermost feeling is, which is, you've misunderstood me, or that's not what I mean, or not what I'm trying to do, or this isn't right for me, or I don't like this, or I don't feel safe. So offering companion tools which are in complement to anything else that is being shared, which could be very practical. It could be vocal health, or repertoire, or warm-ups, that the privacy of that person's practice space, that there has also been permission there and acknowledgement that there is very possibly a parallel course of development running alongside, which happens to weave in a very complementary way to exercises which are energetic and they are activating and stimulating, but they also have the potential to be regulating as well. And that we also offer tools which help bring attention to and provide frameworks of understanding which help people to track and to learn to track what their individual processes are as they are learning and engaging and exploring, so that they come away with not only the externally obvious outcome of having learned a new piece, or being able to access a new part of their vocal range that they possibly didn't have before, but they also have the accompanying data which tells them, when I am challenged, this is typically the pattern that arises, or when I feel exposed, this is how it tracks in my body. Or when someone asks me to step out of my comfort zone, this is the way that I tend to respond. And that information is priceless, and it is information that really enriches then other learning processes, other spaces of engagement. It can become a really handy, as I said before, guidebook or reference then to have this knowledge of who am I in relationship to, and who am I in my process of development and growth. What does that look like? How does that exhibit? And this can then in turn be really, really supportive in terms of how we are navigating interpersonal relationship, but also relationship to structures that are maybe more challenging to engage with, or maybe don't necessarily offer the grace, the space, or the real person-centered touch that we all kind of crave, and many of us strive to ensure is present in the kind of frameworks that we build to serve people. But the actual realistic implementation of that doesn't always hit the mark. And I think acknowledging that, rather than looking at it as a kind of failing of a system, but just, you know, a reality of daily life, that we're always interacting with frameworks that are not necessarily meeting those needs. But a way that we can kind of counter that is knowing ourselves, knowing more of ourselves, understanding really what makes us tick, and, you know, what do I actually need in order to feel supported? Because if it's not offered in the space, if it doesn't exist in the space, but I know I need it, I'm one step closer to being able to ask for it, or at least being able to draft in additional support to help me in that process of self-advocacy. If I know, for example, that engaging with a challenging structure and asking for additional support needs to be met is something that I would struggle with because of personal patterns around communication that might tend towards a quality of self-suppression, for example. So food for thought, and whatever space you find yourself in your personal life or professional life, if there are kind of themes there that are resonating for you, that make sense to things that you may have experienced, please do feel free to share those, and I look forward to hearing from you. Take care.